So there are four things in business logic. Business logic is actually, there is nothing called business logic in Salesforce. This is a section which has four things. One is formulas, one is validation rules, third is a workflow rule, and the fourth is an approval process. 1, 2, 3, 4. Four business logics. Okay. Now, what is a business logic? Basically, why these four things come under business logic? Because this is where you can define a logic. Logic is where kind of some logic can be clearly defined and the system can understand that logic and perform some action based on that. Okay. And this section basically helps us in automating some of the stuff. For example, I'll give you a very simple example. If you have an object called product, in the product there is a price, and then there is tax, and then there is total. Now, tax will be certain percentage of price, right? If you know that percentage and if you can define that logic that if the tax is 10% of the price or it's 15%, then what will happen? You can automate this thing. So you don't have to always go and calculate the tax. If the price is 3476 and the tax is 12.23%, now for you to calculate it every time and then put the tax value is unnecessary work for you, and there is a big scope of error as well. Instead, if you can define this logic, what logic you have to define? You just have to define a small logic saying that tax equals whatever 12.43% of price. So if I can define this formula, this will help me save a lot of time. So this is just one very simple example. Let's say very simple example that I have taken. So it can be something else also. Right. So for example, think of another thing. Like you select one value, based on that some other value needs to get populated. Alright. So those things can happen through formula. Okay. Okay. Let me give you another example. This is one. Think of this example. You have accounts, okay, and on account you have a revenue field. Now, revenue field is where a number or currency will be entered. 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, whatever is the revenue of the company, that's fine. Now, you have another field where you want to categorize a company. A grade company, B grade, or something like that. A plus, A, B, B plus company. Okay. Now you say any company which has a revenue more than 10 million, that is A plus company. Now this category depends on the revenue. So most of the times what will happen? You will see the revenue manually and then you will rate it A plus. But that is a time consuming thing, right? And then again, not just the time consuming factor, the other factor is of the error. Human being can make errors. So for that reason, if you automate this, you can define a logic. If revenue, this can also be a small formula which says if revenue greater than 10 million, A plus, otherwise A. Right? So these kind of things, there can be a lot of these kind of logics. you have a case. Okay, if the case came from a company which is a very big company, which has a very big revenue, you want to make it as a highest priority case. So priority of the case you want to sometimes there may happen, right? The priority of the case you want to define based on the revenue of the client. You think that your business can have a logic that, okay, fine, first of all we'll resolve the cases of our biggest clients. Okay, you can define the priority based on that. So these kind of logics can be used. So these are all formulas. Okay, this tax calculation, category calculation, priority calculation, these are formulas. So in case I have a very clearly defined logic, there we can automate certain things using formulas. Formulas is the first thing. Let's see how do we put formulas in Salesforce. So for formula, you will just need to go to any of the object and create a formula field. Alright. So formula is a field type which you might have seen. For example, I have opportunities object, right? So in opportunities, I already have a field for amount. Tax is also there. Let me see my custom objects. Okay, let's go with that example of account where you want to define a category of the account. So create a new field, make it a formula field. Okay, click on next. Give it a name, category, and then give it a return type. So what will it return? It will return text. This is where your formula should be. So the logic that you want to put, define it here. If you want to use any of the functions from here, use it. You want to use if function, bring the if function here. So my logical test is if revenue greater than 5 million or 10 million, whatever. Fields that you want to bring in here, you should click on insert field and then bring the field. So annual revenue field, because you do not exactly remember name of all the fields, right? So you should go here and insert. Instead of you typing it, always try to use insert field until and unless you are very sure of the field name. If annual revenue greater than this, then the value of this field should be category A, otherwise it should be category B. Now based on the annual revenue, this field will get updated. If it is more than 5 million, it will be category A. If it is less than 5 million, it will be category B. Click on next. Should be within quotes. You can check syntax here if your formula is correct or not. No syntax error. Now you can click on next. Right. Now for any account where the revenue is more than 5 million, it will be categorized as A category account and others will be categorized as B category account. Let me open an example and see. What is the annual revenue? 950 million. So it's in A category automatically, right? So you don't have to sit and see the values and define it yourself. Got this thing? The nice thing with our business logic or the formula, we are able to automate the stuff, right? So we don't have to do the calculations manually and we can automate this thing. So there are a lot of other, these kind of requirements. As I told you, you can, categorize your cases based on the priority. That priority can be decided based on some other field, right? Or some calculations, some complex calculations, those can happen, which you do not want to do every day. You can automate that stuff. So this is something where you can save a lot of time. So it's not about mathematical calculations again. This formula is not just about performing some calculations to calculate percentages. It can do a lot of things, right? So sometimes what happens is some companies or some businesses have a way of marking the leads into hot, warm and cold. Okay, hot lead is something which they feel that needs to be targeted immediately. There is a scope of selling there. For example, think of it. If you are doing your business and you receive a lead from, let's say your business is selling these smartphones. Okay, so when you sell the smartphones, you get an inquiry from the city, right, and that too from a big city, and you get another inquiry from some remote location, some village kind of a place. And if you have a salesman who can call only one of them, What would you want who would you want your salesperson to call? You would think that okay, fine, this for smartphone, the possibility is there that this guy from city will buy it, quickly. So those can be the logics, right? So if you feel that based on certain logics you want to define your leads as hot, warm, cold, that okay, fine, leads coming from this area or this location are um, the ones where you have more chances to close those. You can mark them as a hot. So these kind of logics actually help you do proper analysis and save a lot of time, and also categorize things into different categories and all. Alright. So as we saw in the formulas, now where we were. Okay, as you saw here, there is a long list of functions. Okay, you don't have to learn each of those functions. We just have to understand, a few of these functions, and then the rest of the functions, whenever required, you can look into those. So you do not actually have to go through each one of them, like learn this one, then this one, this one. Don't take it one by one and learn it. Understand the ones that you can easily understand. So just look, and logic seems to be okay, blank value seems to be okay, case seems to be okay, break seems to be okay. Okay, so if you want to put a line break somewhere, or these kind of things. Okay. So that is one thing. Second is, if you have worked on Excel functions, these are very similar to Microsoft Excel functions. In case you have not worked on those, if you feel that these functions and formulas are completely new to you, you can take help from here. If you click on operations and functions link here, click on this, it will take you to a complete list of operations and functions where you have a lot of examples and you have all the functions explained. Fine. I would not, again, as I said, I would not suggest you to go through each and every one of them, because that will be waste of time. Just go through a few of them and understand the logic and everything. After that, use the one that you want to use. That's it. These are all the functions here. Add logical text, data, date and time. Fine. Okay. So are we clear on the formula part, how to use the formula? How to create a formula? It's very simple. It's just a field type. You just have to go and write the formula. So creating a formula is never difficult. Understanding where we can use the formula is the thing, right? The data model that you think of and design, you need to think that okay, fine, where you can put a formula, what logic can you put, how can you reduce the stuff. So always you have to think on the lines of the logic. Is there a very clearly defined logic? Then it can be automated. That is how it is. Okay. So we are all clear on this? Questions? Please let me know. No? That's fine. Then we will get into our validation rules. And the next thing that we are going to talk about is validation rule. Validation rule is what? This is a rule defined to validate data. Validation rule is a rule which is defined to validate the data. Okay, I have a question. Okay, I'll get into validation. Before that, I have a question is how to edit and remove the formula. Just give me 1 second. Hello, yeah. So before that, there is a question that has been asked, which is how to edit and remove the formula. So how do you edit any other field, or how do you delete a field? Formula is nothing; it's just a field. The way you edit any field, you will edit the formula field as well. All right. Okay. So now coming back to the validation rule part. So this is just a rule, okay, which is defined to validate data. So this works before the data is updated or inserted. Before a record is created or updated, this validation rule can work to check whether you are entering the valid data into the database or not. Okay, which can be something like, let's say for your annual revenue field, or for account you just want to put a validation that annual revenue cannot be less than 1 million. Alright, you want to put a logic saying that annual revenue cannot be less than 1 million. Now this logic or this validation rule will work when any account is being created which has an annual revenue which is less than 1 million. Validation rule will throw an error. So let's try this same rule. So this rule needs to be defined for which object? For account object. So go to setup accounts. Under accounts you will see validation rules, fields, and here you will see validation rules. So just click on this validation rules, then click on new, and then define the rule. Okay, so what is the rule that we have to define? So in the rule there are two things that you have to define. One is you have to define the error condition. What is the error condition? Error condition is that annual revenue is less than 1 million. Annual revenue less than 1 million. This is the error condition, right? This should throw error. So this is what should throw error, and what error it should throw, the message of the error. Only two things, very simple. Annual revenue cannot be less than 1 million. Alright. So your annual revenue cannot be less than 1 million. This is the error condition, and sorry, this is the error message and this is the error condition. So error condition is put in a formula way. You can put functions also here, right? That's fine. Now just save. And validation rule, when you have defined, you always need to make sure that it is active. If the validation rule is not active, then it will not work. So sometimes you do not want your validation to work. At that time you should keep it inactive. Alright? So it's like, switching off your mobile phone. So you can just switch it off or switch it off. If it is switched off, then it will not work. So keep it active. Now let me try to create a new account with an annual revenue of less than 1 million. ABCD Limited. Throws error, annual revenue cannot be less than 1 million. Got this thing? So that is how it works. So sometimes you might want these kind of validation logics to work. Got it? So I would just want you to do a small activity now. Log in into your developer edition. On opportunity object, I want you to create a field called tax, okay, which should be a formula field, and the tax should be 15% of amount. So there is another field called amount, and we have 2 minutes for doing this. Let me see who does it fastest. Quickly. So you understood, right? So go to opportunity object, create a formula field called tax, and the value for that should be 15% of the amount. Time starts now.